Welcome to another Roll for Crit review, where once again we try to drink each other underneath the table.
That's right. This game is called BaRPG. Comes to us from our friends across the pond, and it is technically still in the beta mode of the game. This is not a final concept.
As you can see,
components
right here, nice little.
That's
warning.
right. So you know. So keep that in mind. But we are going to give our impressions of it. It is a very simple drinking game for 3 to 7 players. You could play more if you pair up in teams. I guess you could play it with 2 people also, but you probably wouldn't have that much fun with it. Basically, super simple. Everybody gets a character at the start of the game. Here you go.
Oh,
I took 2 for some reason.
You took 3.
Yeah, well, you know, that's how I do things.
And if you haven't guessed that a lot of these are puns involving RPGs and drinking.
Right. It's sort of a combination of an RPG and a drinking game. Sort of in a similar way that Munchkin is a parody of RPGs, that kind of thing.
For example, you are the barbarian.
That's right. I don't think we need to explain that one to you.
I am the champagnon.
Yeah, the champignon. I think you got it. And the goal of the game is to reach level 6. First person to level 6 wins. Each time it's your turn, you go up 1 level, but it becomes harder because you have to roll a die. And if, for instance, if you're level 4, you need to roll a 5 or a 6, otherwise you don't get to take your turn. So that's sort of a catch-up mechanic. And then there's also these sober points, and depending on what happens throughout the game, you can lose them. And if you lose all 4 of them, you lose your character and you go all the way back to level 1, which can be a bummer.
It's like dying in Munchkin. Start over. Do not collect money when you pass go.
Do not collect $200, exactly. Then there are also item cards, and at the end of your turn you can buy one. They cost drinks, and they can be used at any time. There are lots of different effects. You can play in other people. There are cancel cards. Some of them are traps that do things to you specifically.
Particularly to me. Apparently, I love traps.
Yeah, you got a few traps. And I guess most importantly, each character has their special ability, and that's really what you do on your turn, is you use your ability. And usually it's some kind of a goofy thing that you make other people do, a competition.
Right, let's actually look at the 2 we have out now. For example, as I said, I was a champagnon, and my power is called Unfair Advantage. Now, I choose another player, so, right, you. We'd both roll a die, and you would have to drink the difference between the 2 rolls, and lose a point of health. Most of them usually hit someone for a loss of health, as well as make them drink something.
So if you rolled a 6, I rolled a 4, I have to take 2 drinks.
Right.
In case you can't do simple subtraction. Mine is, all players point to an object in the room that they would use to attack a castle and explain how they would use it. Then the worst choice, decided by the barbarian, in this case me, takes a drink and loses a sober point. So they can range from, that's almost like a mini apples to apples game within
Like mine was more of just a simple luck, while yours is much more of the fun, more storytelling aspect.
I think probably our favorite one that we did was the player who uses it does some kind of an action that could be anything.
Well, I had 2.
Okay, well, let's start with this one.
Okay.
Does some kind of an action. And then the next player after them does a different kind of action, but they have to include theirs as well. So it's like a game of Simon Says, or Simon.
The Brewed.
Yeah, the Brewed. So, for instance, if I clap my hands, then you have to clap your hands and then do something else, like you scratch your head. Then the next person has to clap, scratch their head, and do something else. And the first person to screw up loses, has to drink.
For every action that's been added.
Right.
So if you've gone around enough times, that's a lot of drinks.
It's a very weird and goofy one. What was the other one?
Well, the other one I really like was the Drmonk. Because what the Drmonk does, and I happened to get this one and held on to it for a very long time compared to some other ones, which we'll get to, is I choose a random object in the room, and I say it is blessed. All other players must find and touch that object. Last one to do so has to drink and lose a sober point.
Yes.
The reason why I like this one is the first time I got it and used it, I wanted to be fair and named only something I could see. So I named something. I didn't point to where it was, in which the other players were spending some time finding it.
Yeah, it turned into kind of a scavenger hunt.
Yes.
Which was fun.
The other one, and which was also fun, was this is when we did a smaller group, we should mention. I didn't get to try this as a bigger group. It would have been probably better. I happened to be playing with a chain while we were doing it, like just in my hands. And when it was my turn, I said, this chain is blessed. But as soon as I said it, I threw it.
Right.
Which caused you to give me this terrified look, followed by you running after it.
And these are not things that are on the cards, but that's part of the fun of the game. It has room for that interpretive nature where you can kind of add your own silly things.
Yeah,
to it.
some of the cards, I remember we talked about some of the silly things like, do I have to give an explanation?
Right, yeah. So there's plenty of room for that sort of thing. It's very light, very easy to play. For a drinking game, you want that simplicity. The other thing that I think we both commented on that I really like is especially for a pretty cheap small game that is not in its final edition, the card stock is pretty nice. When considering this is a game that you want to make sure there's liquid around you at all times, if there's something happens. Like, I feel like if a drink got on this card, you could probably wipe it off and be okay, as long as it wasn't on there for too long.
Knowing the number of times I've actually have spilled drinks, whether it's alcoholic or not, on cards.
Yeah, well,
tends to be a lot. Not even my own, just other people spill drinks on my stuff.
I actually just meant resting it like a coaster. I don't know if you, but yeah.
No, you can wipe it.
Even if you spilled it, you'd probably be all right.
I guess for me, the big attraction towards this is some of the other drinks I've thought of. Usually, they either succeed or fail to me. Is one, they make you do a lot of activities, which tends to get really funny when you get very drunk. Mm-hmm. But that's a little bit hard to do if you're not in a place that you can really control the environment.
Right.
Other ones tend to fail because you don't drink enough. When we first played, we didn't drink enough because we misplayed the rules a little bit. But once you get into it, because you're going to pretty much get an item every turn, and people point, you do drink enough, but this also, except for the time I threw the chain, relatively good and something I would don't want to take it to an actual bar. Yeah,
it's like you said, small box. You could easily stick it in your pocket or bag or whatever. Take it with you, and you could play it for 5 minutes. Just pull it out right at the counter. It's good for big groups, or you could play it like we said, 3 to 7. Yeah, I think that it really is the charm of it.
Right, and luckily a lot of the things in here are maybe jokes upon maybe some of the things you might see in an RPG, like we said, but I don't think anything that would be if you haven't played D&D, you're sort of left out on.
No.
In fact, some of these are great just because you know people. Here's some of my favorites: Reflective Shield of Childish Insults, and little good things like that.
Obnoxious Drunken Goblin.
Of course,
that's a pretty good one.
There's one really great one I'm trying to remember. I had it in my hand. I remember it because it was Cloak of Douchebaggery. Definitely great things you think of, just silly things in a bar to say and stuff. But overall, I do think it's compared to the few we've played, definitely one of the drinking games. It's one that's up there. We didn't really get to play on, though usually we do, with our non-drinking friends for this one.
Right, we did play it with alcohol. You definitely could play it without alcohol.
Yeah.
But I would recommend you play it with alcohol if you drink. I think it definitely adds to the.
Let's be honest. You just recommend alcohol.
Yeah, I'm pro alcohol.
But usually when we try to play it, so definitely I think it should work because when we were playing it, I did still thinking I was holding cards in my hand for
I think if there's 1 or 2 people in your group who don't drink, they're not gonna feel too bad that they're missing out on something.
Right, and like I said, some of those things are hilarious still. You're still gonna have fun going
and I also do want to mention real quick that we actually really liked, even more than the regular rules, they have some variants on their website that are pretty different and fun, where instead of first person level 6, it's last person standing, or first person to finish their whole drink is eliminated, or different ones where you have shots for health, and some pretty interesting variations that I really like. So I appreciate that.
Small box, but it packs a kick.
Put that on the box, everybody. So if you want to check out BaRPG, you can go to barpg.eu, and you can order a copy of this right now. It goes for €9. So do your own conversions in your head.
Though I don't know if that would be the same with the whole Brexit thing.
Yeah, let's not touch on that. And at some point in the future, they're planning on doing a final version. Could be on Kickstarter. No details or date of that kind as of yet, but you can stay tuned to their website for updates and that kind of a thing.
I'm sure we'll post it on our site.
Sure we will. So yeah, that's BaRPG. Check it if you like drinking games. It's a super simple one that's compact, and I think you will enjoy it.
The micro drinking game.
Yeah. For micro beers, maybe?
Ooh. Now that should go in the box.
That's really, maybe not that one. Anyway, thanks for watching this review. I'm Jonathan Estes.
And I'm Will Keeler, and this has been a Roll for Crit review.